Meanwhile, Minister of Power Adebayo Adelabu says the second phase of the 12,000 megawatts presidential power initiative with Siemens will begin in the first quarter of 2025. He says the government is planning to proceed with the project due to 95% completion of the pilot stage in 2024. Adelabu stated this when he appeared before the two chambers of the National Assembly for the ministry's 2025 budget presentation and defense. The minister also disclosed that to tackle electricity challenges in Nigeria, the Transmission Company of Nigeria requires a total sum of 2.779 trillion naira to execute 149 projects that are scattered across the country, many of them at different stages of completion. Now let's bring in the president of the Network of Energy Reforms, Olubiyo, to have a conversation on this. Thank you so much for your time and thank you for coming on the news night.
President Nigeria Consumer Protection Network.
Pardon?
President Nigeria Consumer Protection Network.
Oh.
That brief is equally important.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Nice having me.
Yes, but let's look at the minister. Let's start from where he said we need about 2.779 trillion naira to fix the power sector. I would like to get your reactions to that. How feasible is that? Is that what we need really to address the unending challenges bedeviling the power sector in Nigeria?
Well, the emphasis of the minister is emphatically on transmission subsector, which is still in government and public sector business model. And to us, in spite of the huge investment in the transmission midstream by government and multilateral agencies, it seems to be jinx, it seems to be a plague, and it seems to be a vicious circle that even if you put 30 trillion US dollars, you are not going to get result. So it will be a continuous waste of exercise. Because public sector business model all over the world, it's not about profitability, it's about cash cow. The government in the last post-privatization have never hesitated to approve every request for the power sector. Power sector have become like the pampered child, overfed, but we are not getting the right result because of the business modeling and the inadequacy in the governance structure. So the way to go is let my people go, let my people go. We are at the Red Sea, at the crossroad. And so even if you put all the funds of the entire budget of the nation on the power sector, you are not going to get a different result. Is it the fact that the grid is obsolete? Is it the fact that we're having system collapses? And so private sector mindset is about cash cow and sharing the money. So this should be the last budget for the power sector. In the telecom sector, we are doing pretty good because the Ministry of Telecom set the budget, provide the framework and review, not getting involved in day-to-day business. These are landmarks that the private sector entity can do better. So whatever the minister...
So what you're saying is that at the TCN, which of course is primarily under the federal government purview, what you're saying is that including that should be privatized. Is that what you're saying? Would that solve the issue of power challenges in Nigeria?
The TCN was left behind as a public sector business model to take care of, to create food for the boys. And no matter the amount of money, the good intention, we've seen the good intention of late President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, former President Goodluck Jonathan, and we've seen President Buhari, and now Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The issue is not just the money. Take, for example, the leg transformer. There's a product called the leg transformer. About 16 transformers were imported to Nigeria. Virtually 90 or 100% of transformers have gone up in flames.
Right.
Because of the issue of standard. So it's one area, the TCN is one area. We have multilateral finance window, AFDB, African Development Bank, World Bank, JICA, and what have you, European Fund, just name it, the GIS, that's the German International Development Fund, and what have you, being sunk into the power sector. So it's just seen like a settlement for the boys. So what we need to do now is, as a matter of urgency, commence the unbundling of TCN, that is into Transmission Service Provider and Nigeria Independent System Operator, NISO, and whatever it's going to take. The market is so challenged. The kind of optimism that we have in 2013, where Nigeria was the investor's destination, is no longer there now. A lot of contract enforceability of contract that have been entered into between the stakeholders. As we even speak to you now, the discourse doesn't even have the 90 days minimum guarantee letter of credit that's supposed to support their trading in the market.
Some people may not, agree with the fact that, the federal government should commence the process of privatization of the
pull out.
Or maybe pull out, whichever language you use. But some people may not even agree because they say perhaps it's not even about, issue of funding this time. Sometimes it's also about governance and, of course, regulations and all of that. We had, because in recent times we've seen even some organization pulling out and starting and, generating, for instance, the likes of Dangote's, the big guys, in the business sector are also pulling out about 200, about more than 200 of them, 250 of them, are pulled out from the national grid. Speak to us. How will that impact the sector going forward? And that's one. Then second, of course, we have the director of, Director General of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, suggesting how to also address the issue of power, asking institutions
for energy mix.
Yes, who can also, who have the capacity to generate or produce as well. For instance, he talked about educational institutions. So, but how realistic is it for Nigerian universities to generate their own power?
Well, Nigerian University, the S sector, the security architecture, ecosystem, and what have you. Electricity is the life wire of any nation. And as it is, the grid has proven to be inefficient. And it seems to be plague and jinx, as we have said.
Right.
So the way forward is to create a competition, because the very essence of privatization is to promote, enhance, or upscale competitive electricity market. You and I, or your station, or Mr. President, or various institutions who constitute the primary off-takers or end-user customer, since the privatization, I've never had the right to choices or alternative. So the power sector privatization since 2013 November has ended up promoting and institutionalizing sector-wide monopoly, entrenchment of monopoly. And so the fifth alteration by immediate past administration, former President Muhammadu Buhari, and the present President, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, by that amendment of Electricity Act and the amendment of the Constitution, fifth alteration, that brought electricity from exclusively to concurrent lease, is commendable. We need to commend the executive arm of government. We need to commend the legislative arm of government that put together through executive bill and make sure this was brought to the fruition. During the Jonathan administration, it was not just electricity. If not for the former Attorney General Adoke that said the president should not sign because there was an attempt to separate. And government is continual. It's not about him. But he said, Mr. President Jonathan should not sign because it's going to separate the office of the Attorney General from the Minister of Justice, who is a political office holder. So that was why they did this. But we are praying that with this transformation, states now have the leverage. States now have the opportunity to issue license for generation, transmission, and distribution. What it means is that in the United States, where we adopted the presidential system of government, you have the federating state defined by devolution of power. Devolution of power through federalism, resource control have been an issue for agitation. Remember the Sani Abacha Constitutional Conference. There was a committee on devolution of power that was headed by Odumedu Ojukwu, you have Shola Saraki, and a whole lot of them. Devolution of power is what we are now doing now, taking into consideration the economic height.
Right.
These are the key drivers of the economy. So what the state is expected to do is not about, we need to get a broader interpretation. We read in the media, I was on your TV station to create a right of reply to a proxy of the 36 states by whatever name or nomenclature. It is not the spirit and letter of Electricity Act and the 5th alteration of the Constitution is to demystify sector-wide monopoly. In 2015, there was 14 IPPs, independent power plant investors. They are not NIPP and NDPAC. They came as private investors. Up north, you know, in the north, you have abundance of sun, which means that you can promote solar energy. So we have 14 of them that came to generate, like in Gwagwalada in FCT, 100 megawatts, and all over to replicate 100 megawatts per state. Right. They were frustrated. I led the LR group from Israel to the former Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun. It was a hell of an headache. I had to involve the Senate Committee Chairman of FCT, who was my junior secondary school Senator Dino Melaye, to put out a referral note. We got note from Bauchi governor, but they were frustrated by unnecessary bureaucratic bottleneck of federal institutions. Now the state now have the opportunity by the amendment of the Constitution and the Electricity Act to issue license for generation, transmission, and distribution. This is a new normal. This is the way to go. So what we're talking about is that the national grid, there are federal lines of sight. Right. The state now will give licenses for off-grid, embedded, or captive. What the end users, you and I now have is that we have the right to choice. In Plateau State, without talking about mixed grid, you have the NESCO, you have the Just Disco competing side by side. There's no market that is devoid of open market economic indicators or indices that can survive.
All right. I think we need to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. Kunle Olubiyo is President, Network for Energy Reforms, and also of the
President, Nigeria Consumer Protection.
Nigeria. And thank you. Yes, thank you.